You're always looking for something that gives you an edge. What if that's the edge itself? NTT's Edge as a Service connects private 5G, IoT and OT with edge computing to accelerate new outcomes at the speed of business. Because when you connect your people and devices closer to where they're needed, progress happens faster. NTT, innovation happens at the edge.
Welcome everyone to the LinkedIn Live session on the Edge Advantage. I'm Parm Sandhu, Vice President of Enterprise 5G Products and Services at NTT and the Global Business Owner for our private 5G and Edge Compute. We recently launched the 2023 Edge Advantage Report, a collaboration between NTT, Omdia, and Intel, interviewed over 600 senior technology decision makers, CXOs, and the report reveals some interesting investments that are going on in edge solutions. Enterprises are looking to realize benefits and deliver business outcomes in the changing world that we're in, and investing in key enablers, driving automation, addressing worker experience, and innovation and sustainability. They face, today we will be talking to two very astounding individuals, Camille Mendler, she's the Chief Analyst at Omdia, and Bhupesh Agarwal, Director of Private Network and Edge Computing at Intel. So we have an exciting panel for you. So I'm going to let Camille introduce herself first.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Parm. And it's been such a gift to do this work on the Edge Advantage. I'm Camille Mendler. I'm Chief Analyst at Omdia, where I focus on service provider enterprise strategy. And what our mission was when we were talking to NTT about this and Intel is, let's try not to do something speculative. We want to see what is actually happening in the edge space. And so that was really what we started with, our initial mission. Let's talk to people who have made the investment. They're not necessarily at the bleeding edge, but they've made the investment, they're executing, they're on the road. So that was step one. And we'll talk more about that, but it was a very exciting time, and there are lots of stories to tell about what people are doing right now.
Thank you. Really looking forward to hearing your thoughts and perspective. And Bhupesh, really.
Hi everyone, this is Bhupesh Agarwal. I'm Director of Private Networks and Edge Computing. As you know, Intel plays a very horizontal role. So I work with enterprises, system integrators, telcos, new service providers, and I'm excited to be here to talk about the edge services and how enterprises are taking advantage of digital transformation using edge services. So glad to be here.
Thank you so much. And looks like we have a great number of people on the audience. So thank you everyone for joining us today. So let's jump right in. And so we hear a lot about edge, a lot of interesting things around 5G and edge compute. And tell me what you think. I mean, Camille, the report has a really interesting perspective on edge, and enterprises are accelerating the adoption. How much advantage does edge offer really in practice, and how are organizations using it, and what are the complexities that they need to navigate? We hear a lot from hyperscalers and what they're doing in edge. Is it really delivering what it's supposed to? So.
Wow, and we're going to do this in half an hour. Okay, I'll have a stand. Okay, well, the first thing to say is that the Edge Advantage is not something that's limited to one industry. We spoke to, manufacturing companies, energy, utility companies, healthcare companies, financial services, transportation, and logistics. And we found organizations that were gaining advantage through edge solutions. And their objectives in 8 out of 9 times out of 10, their objectives were being met, if not exceeded. And what were those objectives? Well, typically it was things like automation, implementing automation and AI, trying to become real-time enterprises. So knowledge so they can make better decisions. They wanted operational efficiency. And of course, they wanted many are trying to navigate this enormous sea of IoT connected devices. And through that investment in edge solutions, and we can talk about what that actually means, because it's actually, there are different definitions and implementations in play, and that's quite legitimate, I think, when you think of different industries. But there was a common view that edge was something that it is not. It's not something. It's not a niche technology. It's sort of an entry point into a broader transformation. I think that's probably the best way to describe where we're at right now.
Yeah, excellent. And Bhupesh, Intel has a very interesting perspective in this, in terms of, you're in all these devices and fat manufacturing. What are your point of view on this? I think you and I were talking before. You mentioned, M&O solutions versus enterprises' own solutions. There's many ways. So, what are your thoughts? I'd love to hear your views. Is it really benefiting organizations?
Absolutely, yeah. Pam, if you look at it, most of the enterprises are going after digital transformation. And as Camille mentioned, right, what is their objective? If we just take a step back, right, their objective is higher productivity, lower cost. Now, in these two big parameters, you can have operational efficiencies, AI, automation, worker safety, and everything. Because if these two criteria are met, you have a higher revenue, you have a lower cost, right, and everything sits in between them. When you look at the digital transformation journey, the enterprises have to look into, like, as Camille was mentioning, right, across the board. You cannot work in silos. If you work in silos, right, if you look at some of these processes in silos, then you're not going to be successful. So it's really important, like when we look at the edge computing, right, not only looking at from like what the enterprises want to achieve in next 3 to 6 months, but what they also want to achieve in next 2 to 3 years.
Right.
And this is one of the. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to interrupt you, Pesh, and just say I'm going to slightly disagree and say it's not just about lower costs and better efficiency. It's also about better experiences for both employees and customers. That is what came out loud and clear in the conversations that I had. Those experiences might be around safety, as well as better knowledge to make better decisions and new types of interactions. So let's move away from just talking about the cost issue. Sure, it's there, but it's much more than that, right?
Right.
Hope you don't mind me saying that.
Yeah.
Point taken. Yeah. No, and I think you bring up, Camille, a very interesting point. We've definitely spoken to many clients in terms of the automation. I mean, if you look at what's happened, especially over the last few years, organizations are dealing with worker shortage, higher costs, definitely in terms of how do you scale the business and challenges. They're looking to drive automation just because of the supply chain, as well as repatriating the manufacturing industry as well, and also accommodating their worker experience for remote work. How does somebody who is not able to, organization that's traditionally more in the non-office type worker base, how do they accommodate the same worker experience for manufacturing? How could we enable remote assist, or how could we enable things like on the job training? And what we've noticed, that using technologies like AR, VR, or computer vision, we can reduce the worker product efficiency timeline from 100 days to 60 days or 40 days, and it's amazing in terms of the benefit in terms of efficiency you're getting.
Yeah, and I'm a great believer that everyone can become a knowledge worker.
Exactly.
Whatever your role is,
Exactly. One of our clients, is a large mining operation, and they needed to do remote assist in terms of maintenance. They have to do the maintenance for regulation, but people could not visit those sites due to the limitations of the pandemic and all these. So they looked at investing in technologies that allowed them to use technologies like AR, VR, remote access, and then it comes together with both the edge computing and connectivity. that we need.
Yeah.
But interesting. So, these are really interesting, feedback and data points that we have. Now, Bhupesh, I got a question for you. So what are some of the key factors to succeed in considering when organizations are looking at taking advantage of edge and edge computing?
Yeah, so going back to my point, right, like first, any enterprise who is looking at the digital transformation, looking at these new technologies and all, they have to look at from the bigger, like the broader perspective versus in the silos, right? One is because how you want to transform the company, but at the same time, you also want to lower the cost, right? When the TCO, if I'm focusing on one application or two applications, my TCO might be high, right? If I correlate to those two applications. But if I divide the TCO to like a 10 applications or 20 applications, which are covering right across the board, the TCO is now lower and you can justify the transformation, right? We have been working with one of the enterprises. We start with one use case 2 or 3 years ago, and now they are working on 20 use cases with us.
Wow.
And that's the power of this digital transformation, right? As the enterprises are educating themselves around the edge computing, around the new connectivity solutions that you talk about, Paul, right? Having this broader perspective. The second one is now you have the use cases defined. Now you need an edge platform which you can scale horizontally across the locations and vertically, right? When you're putting more and more. And so having a one orchestration theme around that helps you to scale it to meet your future needs is really, really important. And that's why players like entity really come into picture, because you guys have such a deep experience providing that solution to the enterprise. And then finally, when you have the use cases, you have the edge computing defined. Now you also look at like, hey, are these the existing networking, the connectivity solutions are meeting my requirement or not? For example, LAN or Wi-Fi. In some cases, you may, right? So, and that's not a big deal. If something is meeting your requirement, that's great. But then, if there are gaps in your approach, then you also want to look at private 5G, which is also a very promising solution in terms of providing the reliability of LAN, but providing the mobility of a Wi-Fi, right? Better coverage, better security, and all those things. So it's a combination of all the use cases, edge computing, and then the new connectivity solutions like private 5G. These are all, once you combine these, that's the one, right? That's a very powerful solution for the enterprises to succeed. And this is where I believe that the partnership of Intel and NTT really comes into picture, because we bring all the ecosystem, you bring the expertise, and this is when enterprises are looking for a single point of contact to deliver those solutions. Entity really comes into picture.
Yeah. And I can't, the ecosystem and partnership is so important. I think you and I have been working on this for over 2 years now, bringing together the technology, the processing, and the making sure that we have it created that integrated solution offering. So that's such a key point, that there's no one party that can do this all. So you really count on yourself. So Camille,
I wanted to see if I can add to that.
insight?
Certainly. From the enterprise I've spoken to, remember we spoke to those who'd already deployed, and many that I spoke to had already deployed, 3 different use cases. And already the concern amongst those organizations was that if they continue to go DIY, that would not scale, right? And certainly 60% of those that we spoke to were already using some type of, hosted environment, and actually a commitment to do so more. So that was one thing. The concern is there about how do they manage that growth? Identifying the use case is an issue, but the network connectivity, it cannot be an afterthought. That's what several of them have said. And there's a rising understanding that, these are organizations who are generating terabytes, even petabytes on a daily level, whether we're talking about mining operations or healthcare with all of them, imaging or whatever, that you cannot consider the network later. You need to orchestrate with all of these other technologies. And that is something incredibly difficult to do alone. And that's why we saw a greater interest in working with third parties, with partners, trusted partners. Now, it's whether you guys can step up to the plate and deliver what these enterprises want. That's the bigger discussion, perhaps.
Yeah. Any? I know there was a question, and I'm going to go off a little bit here, but what industries are you seeing tapping into edge? I know you brought up the point that there's a nuance in each different industry and how they're using it. And I do want to talk about one at the end, but I'd love to hear your thought. And, Camille, since you were heavily involved in this.
Yeah, I mean, the conversations for instance, transportation and logistics. Interestingly, where they actually saw a lot of edge benefits, clearly they want to know where all of their assets are in real time. So that's been a driver, and to automate a lot of their processes. They want space optimization in their warehouses. But interestingly, in that industry, where edge had actually exceeded its objectives was in terms of sustainability, in fact, because by doing that, by the audit, by also maybe doing electronic bill of lading and things like that, they could report more efficiency, effectively and accurately on their energy usage, which also has an impact in how they're working with their customers. So that was, that type of approach. In financial services, it might be more driven around customer experience, customer safety, security and preventing fraud. So there are different aspects, and manufacturing is the one that people always talk about, and that's empowering employees through automation. There is a slight nuance in everyone, and healthcare, again, it's about getting the right data to the right people on the right device at the right time.
Yeah.
So there are all sorts of wonderful nuances to prove that edge is for everyone.
Yeah. And this is, I think, to your point, logistics is a great case. And I also think manufacturing, asset management, asset tracking, parts management throughout the supply chain. We're seeing some really interesting deployments around manufacturing and moving from scheduled maintenance to predictive maintenance, using computer vision. Now, in a very interesting question, like what's the ROI? Let me give you an example. We are working with a logistics company, a very large logistics company in North America. And one of their biggest challenges really was around having a workforce challenge around, higher turnover, but also having to make sure they bring quality in terms of making sure the right product gets to the right customer at the end site. So, they're a very large supplier to many of these, outlet store, retail stores, food stores. And they had a pick error rate that was quite high. And it's all about, workers moving through a lot of transactions, picking, a ham and cheese sandwich over a Gouda sandwich or, et cetera. How could we help them reduce those error rate? Because if you think about the ROI, you've got all of the, wrong item getting picked, they're getting sent to a retail store. If that error rate is very high, they've also wasted all that fuel and all of that, energy, which is not great from a sustainability perspective. So what we're able to do is use technologies like computer vision and assist the worker by looking at what they've actually put into the basket and say, hey, listen, this, and identify items that were obviously wrong against the order. And this is happening in real time, instantly, using computer vision and training the models to be able to say this is a sandwich, or a ham and cheese sandwich, or this is a roast beef, et cetera, et cetera. And by being able to identify that, we're able to bring that error rate down and get accuracies of 99.9% or higher. Imagine that an ROI is amazing in that scenario.
Or in mining, load variability rate.
Exactly.
So, stabilizing that, understanding, and it's not such a crazy goal for organizations to be operationally predictive if we can get that data to them in real time with Edge.
Exactly. So I had one other comment. So we hear a lot about AI, and we're seeing a lot of natural language AI that we're seeing a lot of the buzz today. Any thoughts around how AI is supported and leveraged in these edge solutions and how organizations are using it? I'll start with Bhupesh first.
Yeah, so before I answer to your AI question, I also want to add to what you and Camille were talking about on the ROI side, right? We talk about industrial, we talk about retail, precision agriculture, right? Like we are working with so many of these growers, and they are generating petabytes of data, right? And it's all with the computer vision, right? Like in the greenhouse settings and all. And transporting the data to the cloud and back and forth, it costs a lot, right? The people or the enterprises undermine the cost of backhauling the data. So they are putting lots of edge compute infrastructure to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to your point, right, they are seeing 60% increase in productivity.
Wow. And sometimes, Bhupesh, like to your point, the backhaul is not an option. It's not even available, or there's a security element that you don't want the data to leave. And many of our organizations are doing that as well. They're saying, hey, I don't want my data to leave my plant.
Exactly.
Or I need to be able to run dark and things like that. So interesting. So love to get your thoughts around AI and what you think and how organizations are leveraging that.
So AI is creating lots of controversies, right? For the lack of better words, right? We all know, right? Like what's AI is going to do and all. But edge computing, I believe that it's a good example of AI for good, right? And I look at from what the enterprises want to do, right? They are generating humongous amount of data. They want to do data mining to their benefits, right? All the operational efficiencies, all the, like we talk about the customer experience, we talk about worker safety, we talk about the revenue, we talk about lower cost and all. And this will all be done using the data mining thing. The second one is like if, as I talk about on the back and forth transportation of the data, right? If imagine like if there is no edge computing infrastructure, that means all the data has to go to cloud. That's where the training is going to happen, which typically happens in cloud. But then the inferencing is happening there also.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's going to come back to the enterprises, right, for decision making thing.
Yeah.
Edge computing prevents that, right? So now the training is going to be in cloud, inferencing is going to be at the edge. And this is where not only the enterprises will save the cost, but it will help them in a real-time decision making. So both from the data mining, where you can control it in a very secure manner, but also like you're saving the cost and all and making the real-time decision making. It's a very good example of AI for good, right? The enterprises win, right? The customers would win, the workers would win. So it's a good for everyone.
Perfect. And Camille, do you any thoughts on your side?
What I would say right now, I mean, from the 600 odd companies that we spoke to in 17 different countries, I would argue that the emphasis today is still more on automation and digitalization, but there is a lot of interest in AI. I was just thinking about some of the water utilities that I spoke to, and really their desire with the workforce challenges, with a number of other things, to be predictive in times of drought. And I think once you have more of that data, the AIs can start looking at those patterns and model more predictive approaches to dealing with a number of business challenges. I'm just in my mind as a conversation I've had with some water companies, but there are others, and certainly in healthcare as well. There's a lot of interest in what can we do to be not dealing with disease, but preventing disease.
Right.
And I think we can do that with training AIs.
Yeah.
But I think it's still early days for the
Yeah,
moment.
no, that's great.
For sure.
It's great. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I know it's a bit impromptu, but I actually another interesting question. How do you see integration of virtual reality and augmented reality as part of edge computing in enterprises? I know we were just talking about this.
We were just talking about that. It's all about augmented right now.
Yeah.
And I have to say that 9 out of 10 enterprises that I've spoken to in different industries can see some use for augmented, but they just can't afford it.
Right.
And so we solve that device issue. And this is where perhaps an organization like NTT and Intel can put together end-to-end solutions on a consumption-based instead of an OPEX-based instead of CAPEX-based that makes this within the reach of many enterprises, because I think you can get those types of benefits quite quickly, operational benefits. So it could pay for itself. But I think, to be honest, you guys are going to have to step in and deliver those type of consumption-based models to let it take off.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can add on that one, right? Like, if you look at, I think when we talk about AR, VR, and edge compute, right, there are two sides of it. One is because edge is edge, right? There are multiple ways to define edge, right?
True.
If we look at public network, right, this is where, right, telcos were promising that they would deliver some new experiences, right, over 5G, right, to the consumers like you and me, including some new AR, VR thing. That is not happening, right? Like we have seen it right now, even also, right, like when somebody is announcing new phones and all, right, like what do they say? Super fast download speed.
Yeah.
Where are the new experience for consumers like you and me? So that's one side of the edge, which is a network edge. The other side is, I agree with Camille on what when she's talking about the enterprise, like from the enterprise standpoint. Clearly, there are, like, we are seeing the worker safety thing or the worker training, right?
Yeah.
Enterprises can lower the cost of the training by using the AR, VR thing. It is happening right now.
Right.
We are also seeing that some of the theme parks, and it's in public domain, they are putting the AR, VR based new experiences. And it's going to be on edge compute, because you cannot, again, going back to my point, AR, VR needs such a humongous data. So,
that's a fantastic point, and I know we're almost done, and wow, how fast time is going. But a really interesting use case of AR, VR is bringing digital twinning to the factory floor.
Yeah.
And basically what happens is, it's great to do digital twinning in a simulation in cloud, but it's very powerful where you can actually have AR, VR with AR, VR in the factory floor and make changes to parameters and see how it's going to affect the real production line or the real environment.
Yeah.
So I think that's the reality, and that's the use case that I see as a huge opportunity. Now, thank you so much. I'm just going to summarize. So I think what we heard was edge advantage is real. Enterprises are deploying it. Everybody's learning and sharing their knowledge. Enterprises can start the journey, really look at how we, understand in terms of evaluate. Please, start with that planning. If that planning up front is what's needed, so you have a successful deployment. Don't go alone. You don't need to. I think leveraging a service provider like NTT is a great benefit. That's helped you be successful. And Edge is adapting to enterprise preferences, and Edge as a service appetite is growing. And NTT can assist you and help you deliver with our partners like Intel and Omdia. And a big thank you to this panel. So thank you so much. And the link is available in the chat, so please feel free to download. We'd love to hear your feedback. And thank you to the audience for some great questions. Hopefully, the experts. You can reach out to us anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been great fun.
Thank you.
You're always looking for something that gives you an edge. What if that's the edge itself? NTT's Edge as a service connects private 5G, IoT, and OT with edge computing to accelerate new outcomes at the speed of business. Because when you connect your people and devices closer to where they're needed, progress happens faster. NTT, innovation happens at the edge.